behind.
Welcome to Inspiration Contagion, where we spread inspiration one story at a time. I am your host, Holly Jean Jackson. Each interview spotlights transformational business leaders, their stories, challenges, and advice for how you too can lead yourself and others through inspiration. Learn how you too can achieve peak performance, build more revenue, and lead the legacy you were meant to lead.
All right, welcome back to episode 106 of Inspiration Contagion. This week I have a guest with me. He's one of our amazing all-star clients. His name is Dave. He is the brilliant mind behind the Rockstar VAs. After decades in engineering, Dave had a midlife plot twist and dove headfirst into real estate investing and entrepreneurship. Who knew that unleashing your potential in your 50s could be this fun? Dave's superpower is pairing business leaders with virtual assistants who aren't just good, they're rock stars. And I know all of our listeners could certainly use some rock star assistance. With over 130 matches made purely through word of mouth, he's the guy who gets you out of the weeds and back into your zone of genius. And here's the kicker. 50% of his profits go to fighting child sex trafficking because making an impact is how he rolls. With that, welcome Dave Homyak.
Thank you, Holly. Glad I'm here.
Yeah, great to have you here. All right, so I want to kick this off with asking you, what makes you such an inspirational leader, or what would you say is your secret sauce?
I think there's a lot of people with anxiety, and I certainly was one of them, unable to do anything but a W-2 job into my 50s. And I hope that I'm inspiration for those that have an entrepreneurial spirit and want to jump into things that make them anxious.
Okay, so your secret sauce is to be a guiding light to others who maybe they're in their midlife, or maybe it's earlier or it's later, and allow them to see that there is another path forward. Am I getting that right?
That's right.
Okay. Would you say that in taking the plunge and the jump that it was less anxiety ridden, and how did you overcome that anxiety?
I think the thing that helped me the most is to talk to other people that were successful in these areas and have them handicap my failure modes. Tell me the 5 or 10 ways that I can fail. I think that's great advice for anything that anybody wants to do. There's a lot of people that have ideas, but they might have a simple failure mode they don't think of. If you talk to the people that are experts, they can pick those out and help you failure mode proof that idea or switch to a different one.
Oh, I like that. Failure mode proofing your failure blind spots and surrounding yourself with experts that can help you see those blind spots. That's amazing. Pivoting slightly, what does inspiration mean to you? How would you define inspiration?
Inspiration is realizing you can do a lot more than you think you can. One of my favorite quotes is from a Navy SEAL that said, when people think they're completely done and spent, they're about 40% of the way there. And it's, oh, maybe I can buy one cabin and rent it out. And then maybe I add 2, 3, 4 more. And then all of a sudden your income's replaced. And to say, I'm going to buy 4 cabins and replace my income sounds kind of crazy and anxiety producing. But if you just do one at a time and do your research, do your homework, it's doable.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I like that analogy of when people think they're done, they're actually only 40% of the way to failure, quote unquote failure in air quotes.
Right.
And this works in the gym, and it works in business, it works in life. If you're trying to see what you're capable of with pull-ups, you go until failure. If you're going to like do curl ups, right? So you're doing bicep curls, you go for the heaviest weight and you see until you literally cannot lift that weight anymore, or you literally cannot do another pull up. I think a lot of people sell themselves short, pun intended, because they're afraid to take that next step. They're afraid of what I call quote unquote failure. I like to reframe failure as learning, as long as you're learning from it and, pivoting and switching tactics over time. And this is where people play small and they stay in the safe zone. And with one of my clients, he talks about getting people into the arena of their zone of genius. They don't even step into the arena because they're too afraid of messing up and making mistakes. So, on that note, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics. We're going to talk about peak performance. So, given that a lot of people won't even step into the zone of genius, and you've done this in your corporate career, and now you've done it for yourself as an entrepreneur and business owner, how do you define peak performance and how did you arrive at this definition?
Well, I'm going to talk to your anxiety-ridden listeners. Start with something small, but possibly really challenging and possibly undoable. So one of the things I did last summer is a Spartan race. And I signed up 60 days before, and I asked a friend, what should I do to train? And he said, see if you can run a mile. And I could only run a quarter mile. So when you go from a quarter mile to 3 miles, show up and find out it's actually in a stadium and it's up and down stairs, and you definitely can't do 3 miles up and down stairs because you just did 3 miles that week for the first time ever in your life on a street, then you have a choice. Are you going to go home and embarrass yourself in front of your friends that you agreed to run this thing with, or are you going to do it? And so I walked really funny for 3 or 4 days. So do something that's a challenge for you. And all of a sudden you're like, well, if I could do that, what else can I do that I don't think I can't do? Right? Because I did not think I could do it there that morning in the stadium, knowing it was all 3 miles of stairs. I was like, not going to happen. And I did it anyway. So I start with something smaller like that, not like, here's a $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 purchase. And then when you do that, you go, oh, okay, time to think bigger.
Yeah, so I like to allude this to something I teach my clients and my community, and it's when Oliver Overwhelm, the villain of our success, shows up, he is awful. And we all have experienced overwhelm in one way or another. And the way I like to look at this is the victor over that villain is who I call Break It Down Betty. And Break It Down Betty knows what's up. So if you have what feels like a lofty goal, and it could be a personal goal, it could be a romantic goal, it could be a business goal, whatever that goal is, you need to break it down. It can't be like this pie in the sky dream or vision that seems impossible. Once you have that long-term goal that's smart, has, specific timeline, it's reasonable, all the things. And by the way, reasonable can be different for each person. Like you just said, you didn't think you could do it. But when you broke it down and mapped out a plan to be successful, you started with that quarter mile, you bumped it up to a mile, then you started adding stadiums. If you break all your goals down that way, it takes away the power of Oliver Overwhelm, and it creates a roadmap and a pathway forward where success is inevitable. And that's where, when I interview people that talk about peak performance, it's really about breaking it down, making it specific, repeatable, actionable, measurable, and then doing the thing. Just do it. Why do you think Nike's slogan has been so famous for so long? Because you have doers and you have thinkers or talkers. The people that do it are the ones that are successful. So just do it. Nike, don't sue me. All right. So Dave, what challenges or obstacles did you face along your journey to peak performance in this new midlife pivot that you created?
A lot of it was just figuring out how to solve things kind of on the fly. I bought my first cabin, really didn't have any handyman people that was several states away. And a couple months in, one of the guests said, hey, the air conditioning's went out and it's 90 degrees here. And I'm like, how do you solve this? So the first thing is to communicate with the guest and just say, I'm going to get you a solution within an hour. And then you wonder what that's going to be. And you start coming up with a plan. So I called the cleaner And she said, "Oh, the guy at Jimmy's HVAC, I know, he can fix it. Would you like me to call him?" And then I called back. So I think it's important to not, or to realize that you don't have to have a plan for every contingency. And that's what really held me up the first 50 years of my life. What if the plumbing breaks? I don't know the plumber's name. And it's like, oh, I can figure this out when it breaks or if it breaks.
I like that. Yeah. I think what that kind of breaks down to and boils down to is truly trusting yourself and your capabilities, right? So it's being able to, what I call, build the airplane while you fly it, right? And
Mm.
when you trust yourself, you trust your capabilities and you're creative, you're able to think on the fly, you're accessible and available, there are not very many problems you can't figure out, right? And it really is, you also talked about right there, you were creative, but you also leaned on a person that was on the ground floor and that person was connected. So it's about building your community, trusting yourself, and then not feeling like you have to have all the answers. Some of the clients or prospective clients that I work with, they're so hung up on creating a business plan. And I'm like, throw out the damn business plan and let's see what sticks, what sells. They're so fixated on building the whole course or building the whole solution before they even test the market to see if there's a viable market fit and if the
Mhm.
thing's going to sell. And so a lot of failures in entrepreneurship start before the person even has the tested product or solution and market fit. And they've gone so far down the pipeline that they lose tons of investment and confidence, which makes peak performance nearly impossible because then you're hurting your trust in yourself with all these so-called failures that don't work because you didn't go about it the right way. Love that.
Mhm.
Awesome. So, given that you've experienced that with the work you're doing at Rockstar VAs and even in your real estate business, how have you created a culture of peak performance within your company?
One of the things I do is I always ask everybody's opinion and implement, showing that I trust. And that's one of the biggest pieces of feedback I get from my top people, is that they can tell that I care and that I want their lives to become better, and to ask them, what in your life would you really like to see happen? And when you do that care of people and ask them questions like, what would be a 10 out of 10 for you as far as life changes coming up? That gets them thinking about it. And then you can see what you can do to support them to help achieve their dreams. So it's kind of bringing along the way and helping plant the seeds of peak performance and then helping them along that path.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because I think a lot of folks, when they're building that culture, they think that they're doing all the right things. They think that they're invested. But what you said, shared there, that's a little bit different is asking questions that are not your typical standard questions that get your team thinking about. Like, I love the what would make your life a 10 out of 10 today?
Mhm.
That's not a typical question that people ask. And that makes them pause and think, and that seeds opportunity for new inspiration, new growth, new opportunity, keeps them being strategic so that they can also be creative in the customer experience, the customer delivery that they're offering. Because when you model and walk the talk of the culture you want with your employees, that affects and replicates and ripples out to your customers. And when you show them that pathway, once they come back with that answer of, great, let's break this down into some tangible bite-sized pieces and steps that we can take, and how we can align that to your success in our company to help you build that dream in your personal life. When you build that, people aren't going to leave, because if you look at all the research out there on why people stay with certain companies, always like the huge percentage is around your boss. Like there's of
Mhm.
course like the baseline security things of foundational payment, foundational, healthcare accessibility. Beyond that, people stay based on who they're reporting into, the vision of
Mhm.
the company, if they feel supported, and they leave when their boss doesn't do those things. So that's really exciting. And then I guess my next question would be kind of segueing into that next piece is, how important would you say the employee experience is for peak performance?
I think the employee experience is super important for peak performance. If you're distracted by anything, you're never going to be able to achieve what you're actually capable of. And to have any self-doubts or other things in your way that just use your energy, that isn't good if you're going to remotely try to get to peak performance. So it's trying to remove, I view the boss's role, my role, as getting roadblocks out of the way so that people can become peak performers, provide that energy that clients and the remote workers will really enjoy and resonate with, and get all those roadblocks out and let people do what they do best.
Yeah, I like that. That really is essentially what being a leader and a manager or a boss is about seeing the best in your people, understanding what their vision and goal is personally for and professionally, and then removing all those blockers so that they're in their zone of genius. And when bosses can show up and do that, it directly affects the customer experience. So, what I want to ask you next, perfect segue, is how have you optimized your customer experience based on what you've learned from your peak performance with your employees?
One of the things I like to do is put everybody in their area of genius when they're trying to talk to the customer. So we have a performance maximization expert, and he's very friendly. Everybody's very comfortable around him, and he has 15 years experience, and he really enjoys helping people. He enjoys walking people through exactly what a remote worker can do. And he comes up with a lot of things that other people, other clients don't think of normally or naturally. So when you get somebody that really enjoys that, that's where things start to really happen. The magic happens.
I love that. Yeah, so for that example that Dave just shared, he's seeing where his team shines the most and where they love what they do. This is a really important part, and it's bridging the gap between employee experience and customer experience because they are directly correlated. When you set up your employees for success and you see what their zone of genius is, plus what they love to do, and you create that roadmap for their personal success and professional success, that directly correlates with your customer experience. Because then, like you just shared, he is a performance maximization expert. He's got 15 years of this. And so when you're putting him in that perfect zone of genius, you create these golden nuggets of wisdom and these ninja moments for that client and for all the clients that you're serving. And then everybody's winning. And that's ultimately what we want to create to optimize the customer experience, are these win-win-win scenarios where the client, the employee, and the business are all winning so that everybody is benefiting from that over time. Awesome. So we're going to switch gears just slightly here. We're going to talk about revenue. This is the show me the money part of the show. So, Dave, when have you left money on the table, and what did you do to fix it?
I find that nobody's as motivated to make you a profit as you are. So I had a couple cabins in the Smokies. I let somebody manage it. And I think even if you have somebody else managing whatever part of your business, if there's a part that can affect your bottom line significantly, you need to be double checking on that. And the guy done a great job for about a year, and then he got distracted. And I'm like, this is not good. It's someplace between the tens of thousands and thousands of dollars that got lost due to really bad pricing. So it's really having to, even though you think you're giving it to somebody, you have to do a double check every once in a while if it's going to be your money. So, I mean, that's one really painful example of things that have cost me a lot of money. Just not paying attention to something I'd handed off on, even though I should know that it wouldn't take too much to check and would have been very easy to fix, but it was too late to fix it when I noticed it.
Yeah, so well, first of all, thanks for being honest with that. I'm sure a lot of our listeners and even some of the guests that we've had can certainly resonate with that. It's happened to everyone at some point in their business or their career. Since then, given that you said there were checks and balances you could implement in the future to prevent this, what are some examples of the checks and balances you've put in place moving forward to prevent losing or leaving money on the table in the future?
What's putting together metrics that you can look at, whether it's weekly, monthly, whatever, year over year revenue, things like that. And that way you get the feedback a lot faster. I was going through some troubling personal issues and took my eye off the ball for a couple months. And when I put my eye back on the ball, I said, oh, this isn't good at all. So it's what do you need that doesn't take much time, but that you just put something on your calendar every week, every month, whatever, and start to get that feedback that lets you correct the course much more quickly.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So right now we are internally going through a migration to a new project management system internally for me and my team.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we're doing, that I'm doing in the leadership area that only I see regarding some of the higher level goals and KPIs is what are the recurring things that I need and the checks and balances with triggered automated alerts that tell me whoa, things are way off course, so
Mhm.
that I have that in my dashboard and I don't even need to think about it. It kind of puts it on autopilot. But
Mhm.
knowing your KPIs and metrics and the bottom line essentials and being able to have triggers that, prompt you to realize that the ship is off course is really, really important. So if you have not done that today, I highly recommend that you do what I call some super thinking time where you step back and look and work on the business as the leader. And what are the bottom line things? How do you know things are starting to go off course? What can you do to automate as much of that so that you have an alert that pops up in your face even when things hit the fan in your personal life? Because how we do one thing is how we do everything. And how can you set that up so that you are always set up for success and never go off course or not very far off course, right?
Mhm.
Thanks for sharing that, Dave. What's the next shiny object that you would like to turn into a new revenue stream?
The thing that's catching my attention right now is changes to zoning in certain cities. So, like Anaheim, California, San Diego, St. Pete, where you can take a more modest house, knock it down, and build two condos and two accessory dwelling units in the backyard. So you've turned one door into four. The build costs aren't that steep. And where I ended up doing well with net worth was in a bunch of appreciation in the Smokies because I bought there in 2018. There's no way that appreciation will occur again in the Smokies. So it's like, if I like appreciation, where can I find it? And taking a property like that that's gone up in value and doing a 1031 exchange, which is a tax deferred exchange, into something where I turn a property into two condos and two ADUs, there's a ton of value add and the appreciation can continue to occur. So I'm exploring that with a partner right now.
Awesome. What I also like about that is if you really think about it too, that for a lot of other socially conscious reasons is a smart strategy because
Mm-hmm.
there's also this direct environmental correlation where why are we taking up so much space when we could have one property or one land lot and turn that into multiple dwellings, which is in a lot of ways how we should be living to protect more park space, protect more forest area, protect the quality of the way the planet is going. So I think that what I like about this strategy is one, you're being clever about the bottom line, the KPIs, where you've had success in the past and you're trying to 10x that. And you're also doing it in a way that has a very viable, socially conscious approach to it. So that's very compelling in the market today, where it's not just about 10xing it, but it's giving value back to how we should be living and
Mm-hmm.
how we can be more creative. Um, and even make things more accessible for people, because right now, the way the rising cost of property, homeowners have to get creative, and they're going to need multiple dwelling units on one property so that they can afford the mortgage. And so there's also a compelling storyline there that I think would be very compelling for the market.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Cool. All right. Well, you'll have to keep us posted on how that goes. And then when
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the market, I'll talk to you about how we're doing that for what we buy.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to wrap it up. It's been a great interview. I'm going to ask you a couple rapid fire questions. What is the best one piece of advice you would share with others today?
There's a lot of people around you that are relatively successful that'd be happy to help you if you just ask. I'm shocked at the amount of what I'll call like newcomer rookie, really bad decisions that if there's multiple of my friends that have come to me and said, I did this. And I said, man, I really wish you would have mentioned that before you did it. And they're looking for, how do I fix this really bad problem that I made? And I said, if you would have talked to me 2 months ago, we could have had you not do this and we wouldn't have anything to fix. So it's just believing that other people actually want to help you, and that if you just ask, a lot of times you'll have risk mitigated significantly with a 5-minute conversation that you didn't have to expose yourself to.
Yeah, your network is your net worth, you guys. And when you trust and lean into your network and expand it and surround yourself with those successful people and then leverage their wisdom because they have it, you'll be a lot more successful, and your wallet and 401k will reflect that. All right, Dave, what's the legacy that you wish to leave behind?
I would like to make a significant dent in stopping child sex trafficking. A friend of mine and I had the opportunity to fund a child sex trafficking sting mission, and 3 child sex traffickers were arrested. On average, they come into contact with 120 kids during their career. And more importantly, 13 kids were returned to their families. And it just gives me shivers just thinking about, I have the ability to make that happen. I'd happen to be funding in my case. There were other people that were happy to carry out the mission, but it's like, how can I, I can't see a better use for that money. So that's what I would like to see my legacy be, is made a significant dent into that problem.
Okay. And I'm just curious, what sparked this particular mission and vision as what you want your legacy to be about? Is there a personal story or something behind that that sparked this legacy?
I happened to go to Ariel Island, which is owned by Brittany Turner, and that's what she's passionate about. And she said, there's a mission. We know where the kids are. We know where the traffickers are. We just need the money to fund the team. And I geek out on a lot of the economics of things. And the economics of the funding of the mission is actually the majority of the money goes for emergency passports to get the kids back to their country. So it's not an insignificant amount of money that when you're funding, because these emergency passports are expensive. So a friend and I decided to fund this mission, and I cried. And I've given a decent amount of money away to charity, but I've never had that feeling before. And I knew this is what I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, when you find your passion and your calling, and I love how you felt so moved to work with this lady who's already set up this mission and vision. Like that's the perfect pairing. And I love how the work that you're doing with Rockstar VAs goes back to contribute to that. A lot of the clients I work with, that's what we do, is like, what is your legacy? Are there existing foundations or missions and visions that you could just donate a percentage of every sale to help fight that and move that forward. And it's really interesting, like when you lean into your emotions, they tell you what that passion is. They tell you what's gonna light you up, and what's gonna keep you motivated. And I imagine the numbers you just shared there, that's 360 kids and 13 kids back to their homes on rough days when you feel sick or you don't want to get out of bed. I imagine that's pretty motivating.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that so candidly and vulnerably and powerfully. And I am excited to support you in continuing to go after that mission, because it's certainly a worthy cause and it's not something any child should ever experience. With that, Dave, thank you so much for the work that you're doing to support business owners, to inspire folks about this midlife pivot, and to this larger mission and legacy, and for taking the time to share it.
Thank you so much for having me on and allowing me to share.
Absolutely. All right. For those of you who are inspired by Dave, want to learn more about Dave, want to work with him in any capacity, whether it's real estate, supporting this really big mission and vision, or working with Rockstar VAs to find how you can amplify your business and your particular legacy that you're going after, I will have all of his contact information, website, socials in the links for this episode, as well as if you watch this on YouTube, it'll be in the show notes. Thank you so much, Dave, and keep us posted on how things are going.
Thank you, Holly.
You're welcome. All right, for our listeners, we will see you on our next episode of Inspiration Contagion. I dare you to continue going after inspiration and light instead of fear and darkness. If you love what you've heard today, please subscribe, please give us a 5-star review, and please share it. Let's spread inspiration like a contagion today. Thank you.
Thank you for joining the show today. I hope you were inspired. More importantly, I hope you take action. If the show inspired you, I ask that you subscribe and share it with your network. Let's spread inspiration together today.